Hello, my name is Isaiah Berg. I am a proud Dartmouth graduate from the class of 2011, and I was president of SigEp in my senior year. This is a webinar hosted by some alumni, volunteers, other people who've been involved with SigEp over the years, and are really excited about SigEp's return to Dartmouth campus. The college and our own fraternity have been through a lot of transition points since COVID hit, and we are excited to share with you this evening a lot of details about not just what makes SigEp special and different and the kind of unique kind of offering we're hoping to provide at Dartmouth and in terms of really redefining Greek life and what a fraternity can be. But we're also really excited just to share the kind of backgrounds of some of our panelists that are with us tonight. Folks who have unique perspectives and contributions, things to offer in terms of Greek life at Dartmouth. And we're hoping that after this evening, you'll get a better perspective, not just of what SigEp hopes to do upon our return to campus, but also a sense of how you can get involved. So in terms of a brief overview of this evening, first, we're going to introduce our panelists. We're going to talk about some of their background with Greek life, with Dartmouth, and with our fraternity. We're going to share about our return to campus, our plan to begin recruiting in terms of our marketing campaign this fall, the actual return of staff members and actual on-campus recruitment beginning in January of 2022, and our plan to return and operate our facility beginning in the fall of 2022. We're going to walk through all those details. But really, again, the focus this evening is the why of fraternity at Dartmouth and the why behind our organization, what makes SigEp different. And that's really what motivates the panelists that are here tonight with us to get involved and remain involved, not just when they're on campus as students, but for the rest of their lives. So with that, again, my name is Isaiah Berg, class of 2011, really proud to be a volunteer and part of this effort. A little bit about me before I hand it off to introduce some of our other panelists. I currently live and work here in New York City. After Dartmouth, I was in the military for a number of years before transitioning to business school, and in my current role working here in New York City in finance. I am volunteering on the Alumni Volunteer Corporation of SigEp as the VP of Finance and sharing our recolonization effort. So with that, I will hand it off to Brian Joyce to introduce himself. Thank you, Brian.
Hi, everyone. Brian Joyce. I am currently an assistant dean for student life and director of Greek life here at Dartmouth College. Neither of my parents, sorry about that. Of course, the dog chooses now to act up. I just wanted to say, neither of my parents graduated from college. And so when I was trying to navigate the college and university experience, it was really difficult. And my fraternity experience made that a lot better. And so networking with fraternity brothers and having a really positive and great fraternity experience made that college experience complete for me. And so I want to be able to provide that experience for other college students and know how impactful the fraternity experience can be for young men across the country. Thanks, Isaiah.
Thank you, Brian. And next up, we've got JD.
Yeah, I'm JD Optekar. Thanks, Isaiah. Class of 91, Thayer School 92. And currently live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We've been here for, I guess, about 17 years. And primarily a homemaker. So my wife is also a Dartmouth 91. And I stay at home with the 3 kids. So we've got a 17-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 13-year-old. Career-wise, after I got out of finished at Thayer School, I worked for a while as a civil engineer. Decided I didn't like that too much. Got into the software world, did that for a while. And then when we had our first kid, I thought, this will be easy. I'll stay home with the kids and run and play music and have fun. And it's been a little bit different story. But, I played in a band for a number of years. And currently for the last 4 years, I've been coaching middle school track and field and cross country, which pays even less than being in a band. Also started volunteer coaching with a football team at the high school as well. And I was recruited as a runner. That's what brought me to Dartmouth. I went back there on my recruiting trip. It was a beautiful fall day. Just absolutely fell in love with the campus and the people. Ironically, I stayed with somebody who was from Washington State and also even though he's a year older, he joined SigEp the same year I did. And I got involved with SigEp. There's a number of track guys in the house. So that kind of got me interested in it initially, but also it kind of gave me a whole different group of friends. I was very involved with the Asian Studies program in my FSP in China, obviously with track and field, cross country. It was kind of nice to just have a whole different group that I got really close to. And I stayed really close to my SigEp brothers. I mean, whether it was going to the copper mines in the summer or doing the rope swing or hitting Harry's later on. Some of those guys, we still get together and go on skiing trips and spend time together. So, what I was really hoping to do, I was back there for my 25th reunion and went by the house, and that's what got me involved. I wanted to kind of have an opportunity. I wasn't always the best member of the chapter when I was there, so I wanted an opportunity to give back and get involved. And, from coaching, I love working with people and thought it'd be a great opportunity. So I've been on the ABC board since fall of 2016. I think I've been the ABC president since 2017. So hanging in there, taking a few punches, but still going strong, and really looking forward to the chapter getting back on campus. Just also involved in a lot of other things at Dartmouth, including the Friends of Track and Field. I'm currently the co-chair for the Friends of Track and Field and cross country, and love getting back to campus anytime I can. So with that, I will pass it over to Jim Shields.
Thanks, JD. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name's Jim Shields. I am class of 88 and also ran track and field while I was there. That was a connector to SigEp. And SigEp became so much more. I was very active, on campus with the fraternity. And then upon graduation, not as active with the fraternity, but still remained friends and active with brothers throughout all of that, and still remain connected to them now. And actually, JD reached out to me, it was probably about 3 years ago, about finding out what had gone on with the chapter and the recolonization, and asked if I would be interested in getting back involved. I thought it would be great because of the experience I had as a fraternity brother and the connections and bonds that it brought to me. So I've been active. It's coming up on 3 years here, and looking forward to working on getting SigEp back and active on campus and the whole recolonization. I'm going to turn this over to Zach.
Thanks, Jim. My name is Zach Gillman. I'm probably a little unique in this conversation because I'm not a Dartmouth alum. I graduated from a school a little north of Nashville, Tennessee, called Austin Peay State University. That is actually where I joined SigEp. That is the Tennessee ADA chapter, almost about 10 years ago. Today, I work on SigEp's headquarters staff, and I oversee our services team, who work with our 200 chapters across the country and roughly nearly 3,000 volunteers as well. I live in Richmond, Virginia, where SigEp was founded, and I'm engaged. I am engaged to a beautiful woman named Faith, who is out of town and has left me with our 2 children, both of them of the golden retriever variety. There was a question prompt for us of why we joined SigEp, if that applied to us, and I joined SigEp at Austin Peay with the promise of something different. I thought that I had an assumption of what fraternity was and what it was defined as until I really found out for myself what it really meant. The day before I started college, and you're going to get the raw Zach this evening, I lost one of my best friends in a tragic car accident. And at a time where I needed a sense of home, of belonging, and brotherhood, I'm grateful to have found that in SigEp. So why do I do what I do today? Why am I still here? Why am I still contributing? A big portion of that goes towards my belief that fraternity is powerful. And I want more people to be able to experience this and find their home in SigEp. So looking forward to tonight, and I will kick it over to Dan Sullivan.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Dan Sullivan. I graduated from Quinnipiac University in 2013. And right now I serve as the district governor for SigEp headquarters. So I work with all of the chapters up here in my region and the alumni boards, both to onboard and train new volunteers, as well as communicate all of the important issues that are coming down from headquarters. I professionally, I work for an asset management firm, and I have a sales territory that covers the Northeast. And my fiance and I live here in Boston in our nice apartment, which has been both our offices as well as our living quarters for the last year, as neither of us were heading anywhere or being on the road like usual. So originally, I joined SigEp because of the leadership opportunities, both what you can do at the local level as a student leader, and then the wide variety of programming that is available for SigEp members through the SigEp leadership program. So that's where I've been able to connect with many of the individuals that are on this Zoom call and individuals like Zach too. So it was certainly something that impacted my experience. Why I'm excited to be a part of this project, I had worked on the SigEp staff 7 years ago now. And maybe you would always ask yourself, like, would it ever be beneficial to have worked at 27 different college campuses and help establish fraternities? And that answer is coming full circle in a conversation like tonight. So hopefully not only my work as the district governor here in the region, just what I understand from working with college campuses and the recruiting and training process for new chapters, hopefully that can just be a resource and useful for anyone that's interested in getting involved and just wants to have an idea of how we kind of run the new chapters once they get started. And I'll pass it back to Isaiah now.
Thanks, Dan. And thank you to all the panelists who graciously volunteered their time this evening for us. To kind of kick off our conversation, I think it'd be helpful to kind of talk about just where SigEp is at in terms of its timeline. When I graduated in 2011, I was president of the chapter. I think we were, one of the best fraternities on campus. High GPA, high manpower, large membership. I think we enjoyed a great and very positive reputation on campus. We definitely weren't perfect. And I think we, maybe despite our many strengths and the wonderful friendships and the, truly incredible people I was able to share my Dartmouth experience with, I also recognize that we had a lot of flaws too. I look forward, and through time, I wasn't really involved in any significant way as an alumni. I think most aren't. Most young alumni, if they come back, it's just to maybe play a game of Pong or something on a big holiday or Green Key weekend or something like that. But JD, you mentioned you came on board with the AVC in 2016. A few years after I graduated. And from 2016 to the present, we now don't even have an active chapter on campus. I was hoping you could share, kind of from the volunteer perspective, what has been the trajectory of SigEp from when you came on as the AVC, and from your perspective through the kind of suspension and de-recognition of the fraternity into the present. How would you describe that trajectory? What did it feel like? What did you observe? And essentially, how would you kind of describe the last few years of SigEp's history at Dartmouth?
Thanks, Isaiah. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. As you mentioned, the chapter was really strong. I mean, I think about where I was at when I graduated SigEp. We were struggling with numbers, and then the Balanced Man program came in and kind of, held the chapter together, and then they took off in a new direction. So by the time that you graduated, the numbers were strong. We had a significant amount of brothers doing wonderful things. But it seemed like we always kept running into some sort of trouble, whether it was just, probation for alcohol violations. There were some more serious issues. And just kind of looking at some of that, it kind of goes to say that maybe, having 5 guys that are responsible in a house try to hold, the other 95 brothers accountable is a tough thing to do, without some procedures and things in place to do that, checks and balances. And so it just seemed like, every time that we would get some momentum going, something would happen and the chapter would be in trouble again. And then there would be a new plan put in place. And okay, we're going to do some things differently. We're going to do some workshops and things like that. And then we're running into the same issues again. So in 2017, I guess we made a plan to go to Carlson for early 2018. I think we're going to meet in Chicago, and we had some of the newer members of the chapter coming out to Chicago. Jason DiMarino and myself were heading there, and we were excited to meet with them. And right before Carlson, once again, they got in trouble again. And so it's, as a volunteer, it's very frustrating. You get excited about working with them. I mean, we're talking about some great ideas of what we're going to do. And it just seems like, every couple of months we're running into other issues. I'm getting an email from the Office of Judicial Affairs, and it's not a lot of fun. It's frustrating. But we went to Carlson in Chicago. We met. We took the guys out to Lou Malnati's for some great deep dish pizza. And, we said, hey, we've really got to put a plan together, not only of how you're going to make corrections, but how you're going to hold people accountable. When people make mistakes there, you can't just say, oh, no, we're going to do better next time. You actually need to hold people accountable. And unfortunately, the plan that they put together and submitted to national did not have any of that. And so then we ended up in the process of a membership review. The remaining members that were on campus in the summer didn't have a strong interest in continuing forward as part of a national chapter. And at that point, by the time we got to the fall and some more violations, everything had just fallen apart. So, it was difficult. It's like, boy, I volunteered to get involved here and I was really looking forward to it. And now, is there any way that I can just like disappear? I mean, I really was looking for any sort of out to quit. And it's like, I don't want to do this. I'd rather coach these middle school kids in cross country and track. And, there was a lawsuit and everything. But it's like, I must have some sort of purpose here. I don't know what it is at this point, but, you got to hang in there. And the other people on the ABC were willing to hang in there as well. And so, as we progress through this and Isaiah, we got you involved and, been working with national, we've put together this plan to come back on campus. And, that is what I'm really excited about. I mean, it's like, okay, we've been through some tough times here. I think we can do something different. I think we can do something special at Dartmouth. I've had an opportunity to also visit with a couple of SigEp brothers. Their sons are at Dartmouth, and I had a chance to talk, extensively with one of them about, substance-free housing and what a fraternity could be like. And he agreed that, something like that would appeal to him, and so I think that we can offer some different programming, a different direction, and I think it will fit in with part of the Dartmouth population. So that is what I'm most excited about. Like I said, I love getting back to campus. I love coming back and competing in the Masters division in the Dartmouth relays. I love going by the house. I've taken my kids in the old house and the new house, and they definitely like the new facility a lot better. So just looking forward to the chapter getting back on campus. I don't know if that answered all your questions there, or if you want me to dig in a little bit more here or there, but.
No, I think it's great. I mean, the things I took away from it, JD, were, one, I think everyone knows, like, conflict is really draining and alienating. I don't think anyone would have wished, the last few years on any organization on campus. I also think it's important to emphasize, there's a lot of people I love and respect who have a different view of what a fraternity should be, or who, maybe like the way things were just fine. Plenty of people are maybe very, very capable, very happy with, the status quo for whatever it's worth. But something I take away from that is how critical it is to have a really clear sense of the why and a clear sense of alignment in terms of like the mission and purpose of the organization. If you don't have that alignment, I think some of the things you described, JD, people who wants to be held accountable to something they haven't signed up for, right? I think that's a really key, issue of alignment. But to, kind of expand this lens a little bit, I'd like to, turn it over to Brian. Brian, what JD just described, right? Maybe it's alcohol violations, other, misconduct. It's like the negative stuff no one wants to talk about, but is incredibly related to the brand of Greek life at Dartmouth, and kind of blurs over and becomes part of the brand of Dartmouth itself, right? And I imagine this is something your office sees, is very attuned to. I remember as an undergrad, being involved with, Greek life programming. It was always so clear to me what the goal was of Greek life from the mission of the institution perspective. It's leadership, it's meaningful relationships, it's all this stuff. And yet that maybe isn't the experience that JD just described. So I was hoping you could give the administrator perspective. How would you interpret from your perspective what SigEp has been through in the last 10 years? Does it match what other fraternities and sororities have encountered? Is this new? Is it different? I would love to get your take as kind of an administrator at the college, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Isaiah. I think I would zoom out to the national level and talk a little bit about the Abolish Greek Life movement that has been occurring nationally, and that hasn't necessarily hit Dartmouth over the last couple of years, but certainly something that we've had to deal with as an institution. This question of why do we even exist? And I think we're both nationally and at Dartmouth, we're reaching a point where fraternities need to articulate our value to the institution and to the community. And I think that we're setting up to establish metrics and establish standards that help our fraternities and sororities do that as part of this community. And I think it's really helpful to hear from a fraternity like SigEp that wants to begin to articulate that value in a different way. And I think that that's really important. And I think that that's the direction of Greek life at Dartmouth and nationally. And I think that we're uniquely situated, especially coming out of a global pandemic, and thinking about, a lot of students are thinking about as they come back to campus, some of them stepping foot on campus for the first time, where's my community? Where can I find that sense of belonging? We're having a lot of conversations at Dartmouth about mental health. I think that our fraternity system is uniquely situated to really carve out our brand and our mission and values, and articulate that to the rest of the community, that this is a place where you can come and have a great and positive experience and safe experience, and contribute positively to your well-being. And I think that it's really important that we do so in a safe and positive way.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate that. And kind of going up and building off of what you just shared, Brian, part of me thinks, since I graduated, one of the really interesting phenomena, reading about in the news, the famous, Animal House, right? From popular culture, the fraternity that inspired Animal House was Alpha Delta fraternity, a very substantial, large, popular fraternity. Again, one of probably the leading fraternities at the time when I was on campus. My understanding is currently empty. Do you recognize the facility might be being used as office space or things like that? I think if you had asked people in my year when we graduated, would that have even been fathomable? I don't think anyone would have thought so. It seemed impossible from the perspective or vantage point of a student deep in the Dartmouth bubble. But they're gone. And I think if you read the news reports about it, it seems like there's some pretty understandable reasons why they're no longer around. And the thing that comes to mind based on what you shared, Brian, is you might be able to make it a year or two, maybe even 5 years, maybe even 10 years by just doing the things the way they've always been done. But if I wanted to build a fraternity that's going to be around 50 years from now, 100 years from now, to me, there just has to be a deep and fundamental alignment with the college's mission. Otherwise, I see it as kind of fundamentally bankrupt. You're playing the game, and eventually, the things aren't going to break your way, and it's going to be very bad, and your institution's going to crumble. So, without going too far, down that line, I did, think this would be maybe a good time to present on what exactly it is we're planning to do for the next year. So I'm going to take control here to share my screen. I'm going to share a presentation we kind of put together to highlight just a few of the things we're working on over the next year as part of our way forward. I'm assuming that everyone can see this. I'm just going to share and go full screen. I think that'll work for the team. Can I get a thumbs up from my panelists if this is showing on the screen all right? Awesome. So essentially what I'd like to walk you through today is kind of our way forward. This slide, I think, really encapsulates a lot of the elements of what I think, to go back to what Brian was sharing, what is an institution, what is a fraternity that is fundamentally aligned with the college's mission, something that's going to be built for 50 or 100 years. And I would say it has like a lot of these elements. When I was on campus, we had, I think, a very wonderful differentiator, which is we were very explicit that we didn't pledge. You weren't some kind of subhuman, person who was treated poorly and had to be hazed and beaten into shape in order to earn membership. Instead, you were a member and you were respected from day one. In practice, there was also, I think, a little bit of the typical, fraternity, young men drinking, having a good time thing. And that was always there, but I think it was a really wonderful differentiator for us as an organization. And what I asked myself is, could we even be more differentiated? could we double down on the things that make us different, that make us resilient, and again, that really align us with the college? And so it's really the things here. Some things that are underlined I would really emphasize are things like service learning. As an organization, can you be more than just a place where people hang out? Can you be a place where you do things that are really meaningful for the community? Meaningful in terms of not just that you're going on a charitable fundraiser, but that you're actually learning in the process and developing relationships with one another in the process. It's kind of a higher bar, but what comes to mind for me is when I think about whether it's my fraternity brothers or other Dartmouth students who I knew as undergrads, I'm now 10 years out past graduation, and there's a whole lot of folks that I hung out with socially that I never see, I never stay in contact with. I'd be happy to see them and catch up again, at a college reunion or at some other occasion if we pass by in the street. But it's pretty touch and go. But there's people that I have a deep and enduring connection to, and it's often because we really align on principle. And if you look for like really deep, meaningful community at Dartmouth, going to what Brian talked about, I think in terms of whether it's improving mental health outcomes, people's sense of belonging, their performance as an athlete or as a student, to me, you want to be a part of deep community, meaningful community. And I think an institution like this, a fraternity like this, offers that much more than a place that's purely built on social, objectives, hosting the best parties, having the most cool and popular people. I think that stuff's a little bit shallow. And again, the dangers of kind of a drinking club fraternity have been just revealed time and time again. And that's kind of where I think we see the future of fraternity lying. This is a quick just look at our facility. We have a beautiful facility that the college has been renting and leasing from us during COVID. It's been a huge opportunity, frankly, for us at a time when many other organizations took a big financial hit from being unoccupied and dealing with all the costs of the pandemic. It was frankly a win-win. We have beautiful air-conditioned single rooms in our facility. And, it was kind of a win-win where, we didn't have members, but we had a facility and the college was able to sublease it from us. It had hosted everything from the Thought Project, which is a living learning community at Dartmouth, to other kind of residents and other needs that the college has for it. There's a housing crunch right now, so it's coming in at a very good time. This has been a wonderful thing for us, but we really feel like coming back as we restart our operations, we want to make a lot of improvements to this facility. Things that will allow us to have an unparalleled residential experience. I remember when I talked to a few undergrads who were actually living there when we were hosting the Thought Project, this living learning community that would host dinners and guest speakers and kind of weekly events on various kind of intellectual topics. Men and women living in our building described to me how they loved a clean, quiet, wonderful building with good people. The location was fantastic. And I asked myself, why can't we be that like beacon, that leadership, or that leader on Frat Row? I think that's a really awesome opportunity on Webster Avenue. And again, I think things like a fitness facility, you can see kind of a mock-up or an example, making these kinds of improvements where our facility just is the best place to live, work, and maximize your opportunities as a Dartmouth student. I think, again, that just really aligns with our mission and is going to attract a lot of really high quality students. This is an example too, from our library. Again, a typical Dartmouth fraternity on a party weekend. Often the place kind of falls apart. You have people walking in and out, people out to have a good time, not necessarily to respect the space or the members or guests. I think a different kind of fraternity has the opportunity to really invest in itself in a way that creates a space you can be proud of. That as an alumni or a volunteer, you always know you'll be welcomed, and you'll always feel comfortable. It'll always be a place you want to come back to and visit. And that's something I think is just so important. This is our kind of timeline for the next year. So as we look at our objectives as a fraternity, this webinar is kind of a chance for us to publicly lay out what the next few months and years look like. And essentially, we're right now in the midst of both kind of planning our marketing campaign, ultimately launching a Balanced Math Scholarship open to all Dartmouth undergraduates, and also recruiting volunteers and mentors. Those kind of two efforts are really at the foundation of what we're trying to do right now. Fall classes will begin in September. Beginning in January, we will have on-campus support with 2 staff members from our national organization who will be on campus actively recruiting and kind of rebuilding operations of our fraternity on campus, with the goal then to us to actually operate our facility and be operating kind of as normal in the fall of 2022. So in terms of our scholarship, what's that going to look like? It means this is our method of outreach. It's a way to attract the best Dartmouth undergraduates, to reward and kind of show our support for some of the servant leadership, academic excellence, athletic excellence, all these things that are kind of at the core of what we're trying to build as an organization. That's our opportunity to do that. On the recruitment side, we'll be continuing to recruit volunteers, those who want to serve, whether it's on our board or it's in part of our recolonization effort to restart the organization. Some of our key kind of roles that we're looking to fill are, first of all, alumni mentors for our student leaders. Folks are going to be stepping in and doing something that's really hard, which is kind of being outside the norm at Dartmouth. Most of their friends will be joining typical traditional fraternities. Here's an opportunity to be part of something really different, but that's scary and challenging. Identifying additional, I think, alumni mentors in the realm of like professional development. I think many Dartmouth students are looking for that. They're looking for people who can offer perspective, advice, help them kind of navigate career paths. This is something I think our fraternity can offer to our members in a really powerful way. And again, I think there are many volunteer opportunities for our alumni who want to do so. Additionally, we're looking at having a live-in graduate advisor. So our goal is to essentially be able to do some renovation of our facility, to have a suite where a graduate student, maybe it's in engineering or earth sciences or business or who knows what, from across the professional schools, someone who has a real interest in student leadership, mentorship, someone who wants to basically live in our facility, be a resource to the undergraduate members, and be kind of a key part of our community building and programming efforts. We think that's a really cool opportunity, something that will really differentiate us and in a way make us very similar to, if you look at a place like East Wheelock Cluster, right? They have a live-in kind of faculty member who hosts events and dinners. It's a really cool part of what living there, my freshman year meant to me. If you look at other universities, places like whether it's Harvard or Yale, they have faculty members who live right next door or in the buildings with the students. Again, a key part of what makes an academic or university community really special. So that's the kind of thing we'd like to hope to replicate. And the last line of effort is really fundraising in our facility. So we have some improvements to make to the facility. We're going to be launching a fundraising effort. We have a lot of people who are very motivated to make our kind of vision a success. Our own ABC, at our last meeting, we committed to donate ourselves as ABC members over $10,000 to give you an idea of just how committed this group is to seeing this thing succeed. And again, our overall goal here is going to be to just create a different kind of fraternity on campus, to redefine what it means to be a Dartmouth fraternity. And I think that, that alternative might not be of interest to every Dartmouth student, but it will certainly be attractive to a certain kind of very high quality Dartmouth student who wants to forge a kind of bond and a fraternal experience that isn't just for their 4 years for a few good times, but is instead, oriented towards really the rest of their life, and will put them in a position to really align, I think, on really deep and fundamental values around service, around leadership, and overall excellence. Again, that's fully aligned not just with SigEp, but also with Dartmouth. And that's something that really excites us. And it's frankly why everyone here on this panel and our other volunteers are involved in the first place. So this is something we're really excited about. And again, all this is really driving towards recruiting the best students over the next year, and then ultimately operating our facility in the fall of 2022. So with that, I'll close out. I'm going to kind of end my sharing session if possible. And if I can here, I'm going to pause sharing and I'll stop sharing. And at this point, if it's all right, I'd like to hand it off. A question I had to kind of pose as a transition is I'd like to hear from Dan and Zach. And this is kind of the question I think many people on this call might be wondering. It ties also even to maybe future students who might be interested in like, why join, right? But I think the question I'd like to ask Dan and Zach is, why volunteer? Why get involved with this? I think some people might say, I'm busy. I got a lot going on. I also might be afraid, is my effort going to be wasted, right? Is this just the way it is for a reason? And, who wants to fight against the status quo? What's your guys' pitch to get involved? I'm curious if Dan or if Zach would be willing to share their experiences there.
Zach's politely pointing it over my way as the resident volunteer. He's got a conflict of interest because he's a SigEp staff member. So I guess for me personally, why do I still do it? I think certainly the career aspect and the networking, mostly because these are the individuals we get to interact with and the community members. It's not just the SigEp alumni, it's all the volunteers, mentors that they work with that are men, women, varying backgrounds and interests in why they work with fraternity. But it's a wonderful network, and it's like-minded, very forward-thinking people. Even in a year like last year, I can think back to some just critical issues that have been addressed from our country. And I felt like I was able to get resources and speak to other people that are part of this fraternity in an inclusive and engaging way. And I feel like that's very unique and very valuable as an alumni and as an adult. I guess outside of that, though, maybe more so for like why volunteering with an undergraduate student. One of my professors that I worked with back a few years, I had asked him, why does he do it? And he gave me a fantastic answer. He just said, I don't know any better way that I can understand the younger generation and understand what they're dealing with. How are they handling the world? How are they viewing the world? And that helps out. It helped him out in his career. Now that I'm at a stage in my career where I eventually do hope and will plan to manage and work with younger generation, these are all fantastic ways to get that type of insight, intelligence, and then really give back in a way that's in a great community. So those are just a couple of things. Hopefully that's helpful. And I did see a bunch of Q&A come through. So very, very, very great to see that. I know Eli, I saw one come through, and thanks again for all the engagement. This is fantastic.
I'll kind of build on it if I can with a little different perspective. As Dan shared, I serve on SigEp's headquarters staff, so I'm not in a volunteer capacity there, but I do volunteer still with my home chapter on their AVC. As I shared, I had a wonderful experience in the fraternity. I'm blessed to be in this role and in this capacity and serve however I can. To me, what keeps me going is there is no doubt that we're going to find more people like young me who needed SigEp and who had such an incredible experience. For me, one of the programs, Isaiah actually mentioned it a little bit earlier during when he was screen sharing, one of the programs that drew me to SigEp was the Balanced Band Scholarship. It really helped me understand what SigEp is all about and helped kind of retrain my brain on the concept of what fraternity could be. I got to meet a ton of people. I got to learn about the fraternity's values, as well as what types of activities and things that the brothers were interested in. I learned that the chapter that I ultimately joined was the soccer fraternity. And that was the best thing for me at the time, until I tore my ACL, taking intramural soccer a little bit too seriously in my junior year. But nonetheless, I still had a very rewarding experience. I got to participate in programs and got to go on SigEp's all expenses paid 10-day trip to Greece to discover myself and to learn how to build deep, meaningful relationships with other men and my peers. There, no doubt, as JD shared earlier, there are going to be days where you may face frustration. JD shared the scope of one chapter. I get to have that at a scale of 200 chapters, where sometimes I lose sleep a little bit over what 18 to 22-year-olds are going to do on a Friday and Saturday night. But that's part of why we do what we do, in fact, to help shape their lives and experiences for something a little bit more positive. So today I'm proudly a donor. I'm a volunteer, and I've committed to this for my job because I ultimately believe in what we're doing, especially what we're doing here at SigEp. It's a group of people, experiences, and environments that can help you grow and thrive. That is an experience that you really can't get anywhere else. SigEp is, as Brian shared and as Isaiah alluded to, is facing hard realities about fraternities, and we're tackling them head on with real research-backed solutions. It's an organization that is grounded in its mission, is really well aligned with the college, and we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that we're the best organization. And that's ultimately what motivates me to continue doing what we do and give back to the organization in whatever capacity I can.
Thank you, Zach. With this, I think we're going to turn to Q&A. I think, Brian, you and I will kind of facilitate through the Q&A. I think, and just to be clear, I think I'll be able to kind of click through these and kind of answer live as we go. So the first question comes from Eli Darrow. He said, can you please share the specific metrics and accountability you have for whether this way forward is a success? For example, if 3 years from now we are below 50 members, will this plan be considered failed? So the way I would answer that, I would say in terms of specific metrics and accountability, I think a very simple metric would be, are we financially successful as an organization? Can we cover the cost of our facility, pay our mortgage, sustainably well into the future? Can we do that with below 50 members? I mean, we could fill the house and we could be a smaller organization and still be successful. So I would say maybe a membership baseline would actually be less than 50. But I think in reality, I think if we had that small of a membership, yeah, you could say in some sense, maybe that is a failure. I think if I were to draw the line, like what would failure look like? To me, I look at failure and I think about something like maybe it's the fate that befell AD, or I look at SAE currently operating kind of in a quasi dark, illegal status as far as I know on campus. I think about fraternities that just won't be around 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. To me, success is building something that will endure for the future, something you can come home to with your family, with your grandkids someday. And so in terms of the metrics that would be indicators of success, I would say membership would be one. And I think we can hit our membership targets. Financial sustainability would be another. The third, I think I would think about, are we making our members better? Are we taking in members who are already exceptional Dartmouth students and they're just, staying the same or maybe even regressing a little bit? Or are we actually making them better? I think, we've gotten a lot of really powerful stories shared from alumni, both good and bad. But some of them have shared how, they wish Dartmouth and SigEp, specifically the Greek system, was a different place, where Greek life and in particular alcohol abuse or drug abuse was something that really damaged their life during that time period. So, there's a lot of metrics I could go into there, but that's how I would answer Eli's question. It's a fair question. One other way, we could ask this is, if the only way forward was to have a typical Dartmouth drinking club with all of the issues and risks that we know are embedded in that, even if that was even sustainable for a few years, 5 years or 10 years, who wants to be involved in that or volunteer for that? Who wants to show up for that as an alumni mentor or volunteer in some capacity? I think we see very clearly the organizations that thrive and flourish in the long run are those that are different, that have something to offer much beyond that kind of stuff. So that was my initial take. Brian, if you want to take the next question from Austin Welch, I thought that might be a decent question for you to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Isaiah. Austin Welch asked if any other fraternity reorganized and came back to campus in this way successfully in my time at the college. Isaiah mentioned both Alpha Delta and SAE, two organizations that right before my time were permanently derecognized for Alpha Delta and for Sigma Alpha Epsilon, given a 5-year suspension that they have yet to comply with. And so I think the clock has not started for them. So they can begin that suspension whenever they would like. So to answer Austin's question directly, no, I don't think we have seen this at Dartmouth. I think we have seen what would be most similar is probably a living learning community. We've seen some living learning communities be really successful at Dartmouth. One, Isaiah mentioned that moved into 11 Webster and has done really well. And so I think we've seen pockets of success with different types of organizations and not necessarily with a fraternity. I'd be curious to ask some of the panelists maybe a different variation of this question. I think it's, I guess to ask this directly, do you think that high quality undergraduate men would want to join a substance-free fraternity? I think that's a little different spin on Austin's question of have we seen this? Not necessarily, but do you think that we could see this? Do you think that men at Dartmouth will want to join this type of experience?
I'd like to.
Jim, I'll throw it over to you, Jim. Great.
Yeah, I look at what my Dartmouth experience was, and with fraternities, and obviously, I'm in the older group now. I don't like to realize that, but I'll have to recognize it here. And I look at where things have gone, and having older kids and realizing that what Dartmouth is now is not what it was 35 years ago when I was there. And the reason I got involved with the ABC is to see SigEp go in a different arena, just like Isaiah said, to be something that's different. So I know the question was, has a fraternity reorganized and come back? But I don't think there's been a fraternity that has tried to reorganize and do something different. Most of them wanted to come back the way they were and be that traditional drinking club with that same environment. And I think what we are doing here is bringing a SigEp that is completely different than what it was, which is a good thing, but keeping that same healthy group that has been around and been involved, but want to see it change and show that Dartmouth is changing. I think Dartmouth is in the spotlight, and when SigEp can do this, it will offer greater opportunities to other groups that say, hey, we need to evolve and change, because if we don't, just like Isaiah said, in 3, 5, 10 years, will they be here, or will they have had one too many issues that pop up?
Another question here we have, how will you find and recruit new brothers who meet the new SigEp program goals? That came from Keith Jacobson. I was wondering if I could hand that over to JD to talk about it a little bit.
Give me a second, I'm getting a text. Sorry.
JD, essentially the question is, how do we find undergrads who are aligned with us? How do we find undergrads who are going to be interested in this?
Yeah, well, I think, we've talked about the Balanced Man Scholarship and getting word out that way. I think that is definitely going to help us attract those type of people. I also think through some of, not only having an on-campus presence with National, but reaching out to a lot of our contacts within the college. So think about, relationships with the track and field coaches and cycling and things like that, and saying, hey, especially with some of these athletes that they're spending recruiting spots on, are they looking for a different experience? Would you feel a lot better about, maybe one of your student athletes being in a place that is substance-free, that is offering something besides, Pong every weekend, as a place that they can grow, as an individual and as a collective here at Dartmouth. And then that they're not going to be worried about them not getting enough sleep on the weekends if they're living in the house as well. So I think that's, one of the ways that we could be reaching out and making connections. But I also think getting that initial group of SigEps on campus and having them there and reaching out and connecting is going to be important to get that momentum rolling. So.
Thank you, JD. Another question we have here, two questions very similar. First is from Austin Welch. It says, are there any alums involved in recolonization that graduated from the college within the last 10 years? I would say maybe that's a sign that I'm getting old. Maybe I'm falling just outside of that 10-year window, but I think class of 2011 still counts. The other question, very similar. How do you plan to re-engage the recent classes? How can you empower incoming student leaders so that they have a feeling of pride in the house versus fear of reprimand? So I think these questions are tied. I'd be happy to take a stab at this one. Essentially, I think recent classes, understandably, are going to be really divided about this. I'll share my own brother is class of 2016. He and I had long discussions about the house. He was a SigEp. What is the future of the house? What's the way forward? I fully expect there's going to be a lot of heartburn about the last few years. I don't know if that's going to go away for everyone. What I would say is, there's been a definite tendency as folks have gotten older, their perspectives have shifted. And I think that's reflected in those who, A, have the time to volunteer, have the motivation to volunteer, and get involved in a different kind of way. I think if you ask most recent alumni, there's not a whole lot of people involved in any Dartmouth Greek organizations who are, within 10 years of their graduation date. If they are involved, it's because they are going back on Green Key weekend or homecoming weekend to play Pong or something. That's, I'd say, probably the norm. And so in that sense, I don't think it's unremarkable that we don't have a lot of young alums who are interested. But this question is, how do you get the young involved or let young alums involved? I would say folks in my time period in life and younger are really busy. They're in very demanding careers. I think the way you get them involved is you say, hey, here's something that's really important, which it is, because it's literally the future of our institution and organization. If you want to get involved, there's a lot of work to do. And I would love to bring more people into the fold. I also recognize, I think those that maybe want a traditional social fraternity experience, the reality is they're going to be able to replicate that in many areas of their life. They don't need SigEp to do that. And ultimately, I don't think that kind of motivation is strong enough to get people to show up, to donate, to come back for events. The kind of volunteer effort we want is going to attract people who want something different. And so again, that's not for everybody. I don't hold it against anybody who's got a different view of what they would like SigEp or their fraternity to be. But I recognize if we want to be a sustainable organization that's, again, around and successful 50 or 100 years from now, we need something deeper and stronger to kind of unite the organization together. And, as we go out to re-recruit, that's going to be front and center. There's going to be none of this, trying to be both things and all things to everybody. We have to choose. We have to be different. And I think that's going to attract a different kind of student. And again, a different kind of volunteer as well, someone who wants to be involved. So to be very clear, we welcome all involvement. And we also recognize there's a lot of young alums who have a lot to offer. We would love to engage them. This is definitely a part of our efforts, but we also recognize there's a lot of older folks, class of, at least 10 years post-graduation, who have both the time and the experience and the resources to be a huge value add for us as volunteers. Next question, I thought we might service for the group. This comes from Kevin Goldstein. I understand with the lawsuit settlement that there are going to be some new elections for alumni elected AVC board members. When will those elections be held? And what is the nomination process for alums who want to get involved? JD, do you want to cover that? Or if you could speak to that briefly?
Yeah, we're planning on holding the elections at our annual meeting. And so we're going to, as we get going later this summer, we're going to be sending out announcements for that. We've already had a few people inquire about that. So we just ask that you be a little bit patient with us. We still got to figure out some of the logistics of how all that's going to work and make sure that we get that updated and that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's going forward. So, but yeah, we look forward to the process. And I think this webinar was one of those steps to get the word out there about the recolonization and seeing what people might be interested in serving on the AVC board and kind of the vision forward, the way forward. So just stay tuned and look for an email blast probably coming out by late July. I think we're going to get the word out on that.
Another question. I'm going to direct this one to Zach. From Austin Welch. He asked to the panel, would the new SigEp be gender inclusive in its recruitment? Zach, could you speak about this, whether at the national level, what conversations that have been had? What would gender inclusivity mean for SigEp? Is that even on the horizon? Has that been debated? Would love to get your take on this question.
Sure thing. I know that this has been a pretty recent trend. The conversation has been brought up a lot regarding fraternities and inclusivity. For SigEp, our position has not changed. SigEp loves and welcomes that women want to be involved as faculty advisors, as volunteers, as members of the parents club, supporters of SigEp, donors. There's so many capacities where women can be involved, and we welcome that. They can offer a lot to the experience in those various capacities. However, we still believe that there is enormous benefit in having an experience where men can learn how to become their best selves alongside other men. There are several other co-ed organizations on campus who serve that purpose and have co-ed supporting mission statements, and that is great. I was also part of those other organizations and clubs, but today SigEp is a single-sex organization. We will seek to only add male identifying students to the chapter during our recruitment process.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate that.
Isaiah, I might also mention that we'll have at least 2, maybe 3 members of the ABC board at Conclave there in Denver. So again, attending national conferences and representing and learning from other chapters, our ABC board is committed to that. So and hopefully we'll soon have undergraduates back there as well.
Excellent. So I think we're coming up on our end of the hour. So I think we'll kind of conclude Q&A. And as we close here, I was hoping that the event staff here could post our poll and kind of contact information. Essentially, this is an opportunity for all the attendees on this call. If you'd like to get in contact to be involved with SigEp, just go ahead and click yes on this poll that's popped up on your screen. This would allow you to basically give your email to us, and we will reach out separately. Maybe this is you'd like to be contacted, just initiate a discussion. You wanted to get a hold of us and talk to us about something. That's fine too. Just feel free to click yes, and we will get in contact with you. For those that did not get their Q&A answered here before the end of the event, I know there's just a handful of those. We'll try to address those Q&A either in a future newsletter or any other kind of appropriate forum. But again, we thank you so much for everyone's involvement this evening. As kind of a closing kind of message for the group, I think the big thing I want to emphasize is, there is a ton of opportunity here, and there's also a ton of challenge here. And I think those things kind of go together. Like if it was easy, it wouldn't be meaningful. And I think what's really in front of us is, we have a big challenge, which is recruiting and effectively restarting a fraternity. All of the social pressures, all of the typical impulses and tendencies of the system tend to devolve towards like the very worst behavior and the very worst outcomes. So we're pushing up against that, and that's not easy, but the outcome is a really powerful one. And that's like a truly differentiated fraternity experience. It's one that has been successful at other Ivy League schools. It's been successful at major large universities. It's been successful at small private universities. There are SigEp chapters that are flourishing all across the country, and that can also be the case at Dartmouth. I think in our case, the real key for us right now is attracting as many volunteers and, whether young or old alumni, people who want to get involved. We will not be successful without your support. That is the honest truth here. If we do not have strong alumni support, we will not be successful. We won't be successful recruiting. We won't be successful restarting the organization. And ultimately, the end game of that is the facility closes. That's the end game. That's not an end game I want. It's not one that I'm willing to settle for. I think SigEp offers something truly different, and it's worth fighting for. And I want to be a part of an organization like that. I want to come back 10 years from now, 20 years, 50 years from now, and still see a place that I'm proud to call home on campus. I want a place that's a leader on campus. And that's something, again, I'm really motivated about. Whether young or old alumni, I hope there are other folks who feel the same way. And we know they do, because we've gotten such an incredible outpouring of messages and support from folks who've seen what we're doing. So my closing kind of word for y'all is to get involved. Please click yes on that poll. And otherwise, feel free to reach out and contact us at, I think our, JD, could you quickly just read out our email? I think it's, if you don't mind just sharing that really briefly.
Yeah, it's just abc@dartmouthsigep.com. So they can email us and we will get that and get back to you. And stay tuned for newsletters as well as postings on our Facebook site as well. We haven't quite got an Instagram account, but maybe that'll be coming in the near future, or TikTok.
Thanks, JD. So again, thank you to all of our panelists. We cannot thank you enough for your time. Thank you for the college for their support this evening. We were so grateful. And again, I hope this was an informative session for everyone to see the kind of future of our organization and a chance for people to get involved. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening.